What do you get when you take a car made of meatballs and flat-pack furniture and cook it up on a barbecue whilst wearing thongs on Bondi Beach? Thongs is Australian for flip-flops. You get this, the Saab Holden brackets General Motors 2.8 V6 Turbo 9.3, the most powerful Saab 9.3 ever produced, and today we're going to talk about it. My name is John, welcome to Auto Shenanigans. Why not consider subscribing? Saab was hastily set up in the late 1930s as an aircraft manufacturer to bolster the defences of Sweden after they realised there was about to be a small disagreement between certain European countries. Once things had all quietened down in 1945, Saab were at a bit of a loss as to what to do. The demand for warplanes had disappeared for some reason, so they decided to set up a car manufacturing business, which, as I'm sure you know, would eventually be bought by General Motors, surviving until around 2014 before going bankrupt. Holden, on the other hand, wasn't set up in preparation for a war. Holden, or James Holden, emigrated to Australia from Staffordshire, England, to set up a horse saddlery company in 1856, long before the car would exist. It wouldn't be until 1905 that Holden moved into the automotive industry, when Edward Holden, James's grandson, joined the company, taking them in a new direction where they'd work on car interiors. And before long, they were building entire vehicle chassis and body panels for whoever would pay them. In 1924, General Motors approached Holden with an exclusive deal to produce their vehicle parts, which was accepted, and by 1930 General Motors bought the entire Holden operation, which was binned off in 2021 and, like Saab, no longer exists as a car company. Business practices aside though, both companies produce some fairly decent motor vehicles. The Saab 900 is a wonderful looking thing, and let's not forget the V8 Monaro from Holden. And then there's this, the Saab 9.3, which I have here in estate or wagon flavour, although Saab like to call it a sport wagon. Yeah, maybe, if the sport is darts or something. This is a second generation 9.3 that was made between 2003 and 2014, although a facelift model was introduced in 2007, which looks a bit different but is ultimately the same car. As mentioned, this one has the 2.8 V6 turbo engine, the most powerful engine ever fitted to a Saab 9.3. But how powerful is it? Let's find out. To do so, I've come to see Richard up and down, and we've put the car on a dyno. Take it away, Rich. Nice. If you shop around, you can pick one of these up for about £2.5 grand. Better examples are probably nearer 4, but let's just think about that for a moment. For a relatively low amount of money, you're getting, or supposed to be getting, 270 odd brake horsepower. We're getting a bit less because this car is obviously broken, but either way, that's a fair amount of power in what is a reasonably sensible estate car package. What's the downside? Safety. Well, I suppose it depends on how you look at it. Saabs by design are incredibly safe vehicles. They put in a lot of time and effort to make sure that in a crash your opponent is worse off. To make it safe for you, installed in the car chassis are steel girder reinforcements that are so strong, if the World Trade Center had been made out of them, then maybe, never mind. The point is, it's quite safe as cars go, but with that comes excess weight, which means, yes, we've got all of that power, but it is lugging around quite a barge, so from a standing start, you might find yourself a tad disappointed. But to be doing standing starts in a Saab Turbo is to miss the point entirely. You're a Saab driver, not a Surtee driver. And besides, Saab have a little trick up their sleeve. Turbo. If there's one thing Saab does or did exceptionally well, it's turbos and turbine development, meaning that whilst this may not be the quickest of cats off the line, once you're rolling on the motorway or the highway, it's a very different game. To demonstrate, here's an acceleration comparison between the V6 and the lesser 1.9 diesel model. Well, I'm curious now. Let's see how it compares to a 400 horsepower V8 Mustang. I don't know what I proved here, but what I'm trying to say is that despite it being a bit lardy, once you're moving, it's sprightly enough, and because of Saab Turbo excellence, it picks up nicely whilst delivering the power in a very smooth and linear way. You never feel like you need to find the right gear, it just works, which makes for a very pleasurable, low-effort drive. But it's not all Saab, because the main parts of the 2.8 engine were originally developed by Holden under the watchful eye of General Motors. Released in 2005 as a naturally aspirated engine, it was fitted to the Cadillac CTS, which looks a bit like this. Oh dear. But for Saabs and other GM models, this engine would be shipped from its manufacturing plant in Port Melbourne over to Sweden, where Saab would bolt on their finest turbo, refettle the head, and the result is actually a fairly decent engine, flawed by its implementation, which for Saab seems to be a bit of a reoccurring trend when it comes to their V6 cars. Saab realised as early as the 1980s that if they were to ever stand a chance of competing with the big boys like BMW, Mercedes and even Ford amongst others, they needed to fit larger V6 engines to their cars because the competition were already doing it, and wanting to sell more cars in the US market, Saab had to up their game. The problem was that Saab didn't really have enough money to develop their own engine from the ground up, so they relied on other manufacturers for assistance, initially working with Ford to bang out a V6 engine, but in testing Saab thought it was crap. In the late 1980s, Saab started working with Volkswagen on hearing about their interesting VR6 engine. Saab liked the engine, but couldn't get their drivetrains to match up to it without significant changes at a high cost, so it was decided to part ways. Could you imagine if VW and Saab had actually worked together? They'd still be in business, I reckon. Saab would then try a Mazda V6 engine, but nope, that was no good either. But eventually, Saab settled on what they thought was the best V6 engine at the time, made by Alfa Romeo. And then General Motors bought Saab and said no, which meant Saab had spent the best part of 10 years in funding and development for an engine that they would never fit because they couldn't decide on a good option before it was too late. With GM now ruling the roost, the engine choice would be from their range, and the Saab 9000 with a V6 was born. Oh dear. But interestingly, this and the 900 model were the first Saabs with a V6 engine. It had only taken them 10 years and a company buyout from GM to make it happen. I'm no expert, but I don't think that's how you introduce a new V6 engine to your lineup. That's a lot of nerdery, so let's take a break, and I want to show you one of Saab's most well-known features that every car reviewer mentions, the night panel. Press the night panel button and the lights either dim or go out completely, and the idea is that it reduces reflections in the glass, aiding visibility whilst driving at night. And in principle, it's a great idea, but let me show you what actually happens. You press the button and yes, the lights go out, except for these ones, and in particular this one. I don't know if you can see, but reflected in the windscreen is a massive green circle. The night panel does not do what it's supposed to do and is a waste of time. Saab, you and your crazy ideas. And here's another one. With Saab being on a budget but wanting to make their top-of-the-range V6 9.3 stand out from the other models in the range, they fitted the steering wheel with these cheap plastic handles that serve no purpose, look and feel horrible, and in my opinion, the full leather steering wheel found in the mid-range models is far nicer to use. Anyway, back to V6s. Over the course of the 90s, Saab were using GM-provided V6 engines made in good old England at GM's assembly plant in Ellesmere Port until the 2.8 Holden engine was introduced in 2005, and it's the most powerful engine that a Saab 9.3 has ever seen. And that brings me back to the point of poor implementation, because whilst it is a very good engine, I'm not convinced that the second generation 9.3 was ever designed with a V6 in mind. Take a look at the engine bay. Everything is squeezed in, there is no space for anything, and take it from me, even the simplest of servicing jobs can turn into hours of knuckle bleeding and swearing. Also, it suffers with heat management issues, and a unique Saab feature is the ECU, you know, the thing that controls the entire car. It's mounted here, at the back of the engine, where all of that poorly managed heat builds up, and over the years this can lead to the occasional replacing of the ECU. I think it's possible that GM were more keen to put this V6 in the car than Saab were, simply to sell more units in the United States, where customers were less interested in the four-cylinder cars. It's got its flaws, but what 20-year-old car doesn't? And here's the thing, when it comes to Saabs, for some reason I'm willing to forgive all of those flaws, and I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe it's because Saab no longer exist and I feel sorry for them, but there is something about these cars that you can't quite put your finger on. The only way that I can describe it is, you know when you go away on holiday for a couple of weeks, it's all fun and games, but on the way back you're looking forward to getting home and sitting in your favourite chair in your pants. That's what Saabs are. They're a familiar sofa or your nan's chair that, despite being far from perfect, you're always glad to sit in, and when you do, the world just feels like a better and calmer place. But should you buy one? They are cheap for what they are, and if you look at some of the smaller engine models, the price drops even further. It's an attractive proposition, and I've often found with Saabs, they've usually had 1 or 2 owners from new, they've got full service history, and there are many well looked after examples out there, whereas a comparably priced BMW or similar would have had 15 owners from new, no service history, rust, half an engine, the list goes on. But should you buy one? Well, for under £3,000 you could get a Nissan Juke or a Saab V6. Let's compare. Juke engine, 1.6 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated, 115 brake horsepower. Saab 2.8 6-cylinder turbo, 270-something brake horsepower, supposedly. Juke boot capacity, 354 litres with the seats up, 1189 litres with the seats down. Saab 419 seats up, 1273 with the seats down. Juke top speed, 111 miles an hour. Saab 155 miles an hour. Juke cloth interior. Saab full leather interior. Juke aircon. Saab dual zone climate control with heated seats. Juke vomit. Saab handsome. Juke owned by a tosspot. Saab dentist, architect, model member of society. You see, in every carefully selected metric, the Saab is a far better car. Yeah, but why don't you tell us about the MPG? The Saab has a night panel. It's 28 miles per gallon on a good day. Okay, honesty time. My name is John and I am a Saab owner, and I used to work for Saab when they existed before they fired my ass, but I still have an attachment to the brand and the cars, yet despite that, I wouldn't say it's a straight yes, you should buy one. If you're a family in need of a cheap car to get you to and from school or work, for God's sake, buy a Honda Jazz or something much simpler, a Juke if you have to. The best way to look at Saabs these days is that they're probably enthusiast cars. By all means, get a Saab and have a Saab experience. I think everyone should own a Saab at some point, but let's be real. These are 15 to 20-year-old cars that are not as simple as you'd think, and they're made by a company that no longer exists. It's not that you can't run a Saab, but I'd be lying if I said they were easy cars to keep in tip-top condition when using them as a daily. If it is your only car or means of vehicular transport, maybe look at a Juke. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you liked the video. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye-bye.